So, very good evening, friends. Meeting after a big gap. So, we have to revise little bit regarding this philosophy session. We have started discussing about the chapter, The Unity of Medicine from Stuart Close. And this Unity of Medicine chapter, where Close expects that there should be a unity between the different branches of the medicines. At his time, when Close has written this book or delivered his lectures, at that time there were 57 branches were present. And what was happening? Because of that, everyone was focusing their attention only on that particular part. Human is getting divided into different parts because of it. And the holistic concept of understanding the human being was missing. And as now, in modern era, there are nearly about 150 plus more branches of the modern medicine. And there are finger specialists, there are nail specialists, there are hair specialists. Every branch is different. And everyone is focusing their attention in that specific part. But no one is considering the correlation of the human being with their specific entity. And because of which, the line of treatment which is given in allopathy is only a palliative, not a curative when they deals for the chronic disorders. Because of which it is not possible to cure the patient. You just observe everything, observe every chronic disease, and what is the complete treatment in allopathy? There is no complete treatment. There is only a palliative mode of treatment. So, rheumatism, if the patient has a rheumatism, he is forever having a rheumatism. If the patient is having the asthma, forever he is having asthma. So, there is no question of a cure comes in allopathy because they treat the parts. And this concept is absolutely denied in homeopathy. And when we consider homeopathically, even though the disease is localized, homeopathy considers disease is the product of internal derangement of vital force, and we have to take into consideration the human first because disease has happened to the human and reflecting in particular part. So we have to take into consideration the individualization of the case. We have to individualize the case. We have to take into consideration the totality of symptoms, the characteristic totality, then all the specific things, the miasm, the constitution, the susceptibility, everything. And then we have to reach to the right remedy with the right potency, with the right repetition. Susceptibility plays very vital role in this. And that's what we have discussed in last lecture, and we have discussed all the factors which Close has explained, which modifies the susceptibility, including age, sex, temperament, then constitution, occupation, habits, climate, season, weather, all those specific factors, how they alters the susceptibility, and depending upon susceptibility, how you will going to judge the potency. That's what we have finished. We were there on page number 53. The next topic, very important, therapeutic nihilism. Although it has spread to all parts of the civilized world, numbering its practitioners by thousands and its patients by millions, homeopathy has never found open and general acceptance in medical profession. And this is the state today also. Homeopathy is a generally accepted medical method. Occasional convergence of individuals from the ranks of dominant school have apparently made little impression on the profession as a whole, but the influence of Hahnemannian principle is increasingly perceptible as time goes on. By long, tedious, circuitous routes, medical science appears to be approaching the goal attained over a century ago by Hahnemann. So, it is not easily accepted medical system by the profession. Even today, even after 250 years of the era of Hahnemann, till today, it is not widely accepted. And why this has happened, the reasoning behind that is whatever is mentioned as the therapeutic nihilism, that is an era why it was not accepted as a general medical treatment. It is only another illustration of the fact that poets, prophets, and philosophers often pursue great truths and announce them to the world long before slow moving scientists succeed in proving them to their own satisfaction. So, there are many poets who have explained many things. There are many philosophers who have explained many illustrations about the things. Simple example is a Galileo who explained that Earth is round, and no one was accepting what Galileo has said. It took long time for science to come to the truth that yes, Earth is round. And this is the problem. This is the problem because science never accepts everything unless and until it has been materially things are found. So unless and until the Columbus began and Magellan finished the round around the earth, it was not accepted that concept. In the similar manner, the things happens with animal. As the whatever is said by the prophets or poets or the philosophers, it's too early because people were not in a position to understand that, and people were not having that knowledge, that intelligence to accept the things. Same has happened with the animal. The things which he has explained, it was too early for the people to accept. It was not digested. If you look toward the animal, he has explained the concept of bacteriology, he has explained the doctrine of latency, he has explained the concept of metastasis. All those things which he has explained, it was too early to be accepted by the science. It took 80 years that first Robert Koch explained about the comma bacillus discovery, which Hahnemann have explained 80 years before in the form of as an acute miasm. He explains it is cholera miasm. These are invisible creatures to the human naked eye and they are present in the shipboards. He has explained it with his intuition, with his intelligence. So this was the problem because people were not in a condition to accept what Hahnemann said. Intuition, the highest faculty of human mind, wings its aerial way home while research and investigations laboriously plod their way along upon the ground. So Hahnemann, with his intelligence, he was way ahead than the people at that time. And that's why whatever Hahnemann have explained, whatever Hahnemann have said, it was not easily acceptable to the medical fraternity. The main subjects of controversy in the past have been, number one, the idea of general principle of curative medication. There were controversies, what Hahnemann was saying and the people who were practicing medicine. The first thing was that there was no principle in allopathy. The modern medicine doesn't have any principle. And it was an era where there was no principle, and Hahnemann was saying that there is a principle in homeopathy. So people were not accepting how can it be, because new things are not easily digestible. Number two point was doctrine of potentiation and the minimum dose, which Hahnemann have explained with his experimentation. After long tedious experimentation, he came to the concept of potentiation, but which was not easily digestible. The concept of dynamics was not at all acceptable by the medical fraternity because they were dealing with the material doses. They were dealing with large doses of the medicine. And how it can be, the Hahnemann says that so minute, which is not visible, and you give and it produces results, not easily digestible. Number three, proving the medicines on healthy human beings. Third concept where controversy was there because there was no question of proving the medicine, and if at all they are proving, they were proving on animals. It was absolutely opposite to the Hahnemannian thought. So it was not another problem in that era. So it was an era of therapeutic nihilism which was not accepted by the fraternity. And last, giving a single remedy. That is another problem. They were giving multiple remedies. Hahnemann was saying that give the single remedy. And all those points which medical fraternity as well as the people of his era were not accepting, and that's why it was called to be a era of therapeutic nihilism. those who are students over here and who wants to appear for the exam, there is short note on therapeutic nihilism. And therapeutic nihilism in the era where the Hahnemannian concepts of homeopathy were not easily acceptable by the medical fraternity, and reasons behind that, which Close has mentioned over there, all those you have to write in the answers. Refusing to submit these questions to the test of competent systematic investigation and experimentation, and baffled in their own efforts to find a successful way of treating the sick by medication, leaders of dominant school have practically abandoned drugs and not now rely mainly upon surgery and hygienic methods, supplemented more recently by the use of sera and vaccine. So there was no principle in allopathy, and that's why they were in confused state. And then because of that, they were not going towards the medication. They were considering that it is better to go for surgical intervention, and many surgical procedures have been developed. Then second important thing which has been developed during that period is the development of seras and vaccines, because they were considering it is better to prevent the disease by the vaccines instead of giving such heroic medicines which will damage the health of the human being, and that's why they were treating it with that. In pathology and physiology, there has been gradual breaking away from the tyranny. Tyranny means it is a zulmi rajya, which is very troublesome to the people. Tyranny of authority that has long held the medical profession in its grip, that has so long held in the medical profession in its grip. But in pharmacotherapy, this nihilistic tendency has carried them almost to the point of complete negation. So this was another problem at that time. The allopathic authority or modern medicine authority was very strong, and because of which they were not accepting what Hahnemann was saying. The Hahnemann's concept was not acceptable because they were not in a thought that how can this happen. They were in a absolutely negation. Negation means nakar, not not accepting the things. Osler, writing in 1901, said he is the best physician who knows the worthlessness of the most medicine. Osler was an allopath. Being an allopath, what he has said in 1901, very important sentence. He is the best physician who knows the worthlessness of the most medicines. See the very important statement done by allopath, because he was knowing that worthlessness of those medicines which were not able to cure the patient, specifically in chronic diseases. That's why he has made such a bold statement. Barker, his successor at the John Hopkins, it is a very important institute over there, John Hopkins Institute. He is again one of the physician. What he says, the death blow came first to the polypharmacy. Today, with many pharmacotherapy as a whole is almost moribund. Moribund means on the verge of death. Marnonmukh, मरणाच्या अवस्थेत असलेले, on the verge of death. So what he said, Barker said that polypharmacy is the basic reason why there is a death blow is much more, why the people are dying so much. Billings, again one of the important person from allopath, what he has said, Billing in his address at the president of American Medical Association. It is not homeopathic association, it is medical association. What he says, drugs with the exception of quinine in malaria and mercury in syphilis are valueless as cures. See, these are very bold statements done by the allopaths during that time in a big journal and in front of the people, American Medical Association. And what he says, quinine in malaria and mercury in syphilis, except these two drugs, rest of the drugs which are used in allopathy, they are worthless, they are valueless. So people themselves knowing that they are worthless, but we are not still understanding. Still, we follow the allopathy. We never follow the homeopathy. People from their own pathy says the valueless. Musser of Philadelphia 2 years later from the same chair said, so he is also again saying the in the American Medical Association, one sees less and less of the use of drugs. So what the statement? The one see less and less use of the drugs, no use of the drugs. You and being an allopath, he is saying that these are very important sentences. Cabot of Harvard, in his notable address before the Boston Homeopathic Medical Society, said, I doubt if you gentlemen realize how large a portion of our patients are treated without any drugs at all, and how little faith we have today in the curative powers of drugs. So people were making such bold statements. There is very little faith on the curative power of drugs. Who is said by the person from the very big, important, known university, Harvard University. These extracts indicate the extremity to which some keen observers, clear thinkers, and honest men of the dominant school have been driven in the absence of general principle of therapeutic medication. In the meantime, the rank and file have gone on stolidly in the same old course of pernicious drubbing. So even though people were saying like that, and people were knowing the futility of those medicines, still the drugging was going on over there. Blinded by professional pride and prejudiced. This is the state today also. Blinded by the professional pride and prejudice, the dominant school as a whole has bitterly antagonized and ignored the principle enunciated by Hahnemann a century ago and demonstrated by him and his successor continuously ever since. So, because of pride and because of ego, they were not accepting what Hahnemann have said. They were not accepting Hahnemannian thought. They were not accepting the principles of homeopathy. And this was the problem. This was a big problem at that time. People were not accepting the things, specifically the allopaths. In no profession, perhaps, has there been so little open mindedness, so little of the impersonals, so little of the true scientific spirit as in medicine. Few indeed have there been in either school who could rise above the petty personal and professional jealousies which have hampered them into the freedom of higher and impersonal realm of pure science. The controversial rather than the scientific spirit has ruled too largely on both sides. So, unless and until you experiment, you find it out the truth, one should not deny. But there were very few people who were in a condition to accept all those things. There were very few who were accepting the truth that the medicines are useless, medicines are worthless. So this is very important thing which he has explained over there regarding the homeopathy, and because of which homeopathy was not widely accepted world over. That was an era of therapeutic nihilism. So it is looking in a negative manner towards towards this medical science. In one respect, at least the leaders of old school are in a perfect accord with the followers of Hahnemann, who have always maintained that the use of drugs in treatment of disease, except in minimum doses and in accordance with law of similars, is both useless and injurious. One of the first and most important truths taught to the homeopathic students is that drugs in crude form and ordinary so-called physiological doses have the power to make even well people sick. It is demonstrated by the pathogenic record of every drug in our materia medica. How much more injurious drugs are to the sick person, and with their lower power of resistance and increased irritability might easily be inferred theoretically if the comparative mortality rates did not continually furnish proof of their deadly influence and make such influences superfluous. So, the allopaths or the practitioners of dominant school, they were saying that in homeopathy, the medicines make the people sick. Whatever is data is collected in materia medica, it is First, it was collected from the sources which were proved on the healthy human beings in the crude form. Yes, it has been taught to us that whenever drug is given to the human being, it used to produce symptomatology. It doesn't mean that patient is deceased at the pathological level. Whatever is produced is only a functional manifestation, but not a structural damage. But people were taking the advantage of this truth, and they were explaining to the world that, see, homeopathy themselves says that it produces a disorder in the human being. And these are wrong thoughts, because they were not accepting, or they have not understood exactly how the drug proving is done in homeopathy. Unless they understand the concept of drug proving, it is not possible. So this is too important to know, that what exactly the drug proving is and how it has been done in homeopathy. Without knowing that, they were criticizing the homeopathy, and that was one of the reasons why it was not accepted. Then he says there have been signs of beginning change of the base in the ranks of dominant school of medicine within last few years. Among others, the wide acceptance and practice of serum and vaccine therapy, and the hospitality of many of its advocates to the suggestion that the underlying principle of this form of treatment is analogous to, if indeed it be not in fact the homeopathic principle, tends to show a more tolerant spirit towards the idea of general therapeutic principle governing the curative action of all drugs in all diseases by medication. So, later there was little bit change in acceptance of homeopathy, and they have developed the Siraj vaccine, and they said that we are preparing our medicines on your principle. But it was a fake. It was not truth. Because the principle of homeopathy is similia similibus curantur. And vaccination principle is that similimum is opposed by the similimum, or similimum is repelled by the similimum. Two different thoughts. Homeopathy is based specifically upon similia similibus curantur, means nature's law of cure, means a weaker dynamic affection is permanently extinguished in the living organism by a stronger one, if latter, whilst differing in kind, is very similar to former in its manifestation. So this is too important to understand. This is actually the law of homeopathy. Whereas homeopathy never says that when two similar diseases mix inside human being, they neither rebels nor suspends or never forms the complex disease. This is homeopathy. But in vaccination, similimum is repelled by the similimum. So it is not homeopathic principle. But this is the deception against homeopathy, and they were telling to the people, we are making vaccines on the homeopathic principle. So there are two different principles. Homeopathic principle is similia similibus curantur, and vaccination principle is similimum is repelled by the similimum. So this is what the problem at that time, and because of which homeopathy was not in ease, and it was an era which was not accepting the homeopathy, called as therapeutic nihilism. Some part of it we have finished today. Tomorrow we'll finish that whole subject of therapeutic nihilism. So that is one of the important question in the examination. So that's all for today. Today evening we're going to meet and learn one more remedy from fourth year syllabus at 8:15 definitely. So thank you and good evening.
Thank you, sir. Have a good evening.